While I'm rounding out my final year of school, I've taken a look back on a lot of my favorite shows, challenging myself to see what these shows are truly communicating. An issue that struggles to communicate on television is masculinity. Now, I know what you're saying. Masculinity is everywhere, dominating almost every pop culture niche. I don't disagree, but there's a large lack of media challenging the male narratives and personalities seen over and over again in the media. Let's focus on male gender identity as seen in today's society, which has grown to be defined by many as toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity is mostly seen as the internal use of socially accepted aspects of the male gender identity to create a more aggressive, competitive personality within men. But what exactly is toxic masculinity? Masculine identities are reinforced by the idea of hegemonic masculinity. Hegemony is the enforcement of dominant ideologies about a topic, which means that hegemonic masculinity is the social enforcement of gender identities that appeal to the dominant social structures in place, which enforces ideas seen within toxic masculinity. This means that toxic masculinity is taught through hegemonic channels in daily life, such as boys being told to suck it up when getting hurt, or media portrayals of men having to be stoic, dominating, and physically superior. In America, we mainly see the American conservative masculine identity as the hegemonic dominant, consisting of ideals that men should be the breadwinner of families or use ideas of dominance to glorify men's duty to fight for their country. I also just want to make it clear, toxic masculinity is not a definition of men, manhood, or the male gender, but is rather a culmination of learned behaviors through the gendered ideologies socially perpetuated, especially within our media. Now you're probably wondering, if this toxic behavior is learned, where is it being learned from? That's a great question. The manosphere is considered the online method of communicating the toxic traits of masculine identity that make up toxic masculinity, such as...
Bro, you call somebody ugly, that's not an identity, that's just a fact.
I don't want to come across like a woke asshole, but like, dude, women have it hard.
Being attractive is its own sort of prison.
And the producer had his pronouns in his email signature.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Thinking about having a daughter, my mind went to some dark places, dude.
What if we stopped offering thoughts and prayers, and instead offered prayers and thoughts?
I will not have nerds as children. I refuse to have a nerd carry the name Tate. If my son is a nerd, one of us has to die, him or me, and I'll challenge him to mortal combat.
Jesus Christ.
It almost felt like honestly, like life karma for maybe the way I've treated women.
So it's totally normal for a guy to be named Guy, but weird for a girl to be named Girl.
A realm of pop culture with little exceptions to this rule is that of superheroes, often exemplifying or perpetuating toxic traits by giving them justifiable reasons for doing so, resulting in many of these social spaces being riddled with toxic masculinity. However, one superhero has recently challenged the status quo, pinpointing past mistakes to push a healthy narrative about masculinity. This character also happens to be... Invincible, created by Rob Kirkman and illustrated by Ryan Otley, follows Mark Grayson, your average high schooler whose dad happens to be Omni-Man. Originally from the planet Viltrum, he is the strongest superhero on Earth. Mark soon gets the same powers as his father, becoming a superhero by the name of... Mark's dad, Nolan, turns out to be evil, with Mark becoming the only real defender of Earth after his departure. The comics of which the show are based on have some interesting choices for gendered dialogue, to say the least. Remind you that Kirkman is self-taught in writing for the most part. But Kirkman reforms this drastically within the show version of Invincible. Within the show, each recurring male character suffers from an issue that plagues their individual masculine identities. Let's start by looking at the almighty Omni-Man, the strongest superhero. The prefix Omni refers to all, meaning that Omni-Man really means all man, or all that a man is supposed to represent. This is exemplified by his constant commitment to his duty towards Viltrum to the point of almost killing his own son. After refusing to do so, he becomes unable to physically function once his masculine duty is lost. Omni-Man, the face of manhood within the Invincible universe, quite literally feigns the idea of helping all as his identity just to secretly serve a small elite class working to create both physical and hegemonic dominance over others. The Viltrum Empire in itself is a display of hegemonic dominance through force and fear. The Immortal suffers a fate in a similar vein, with his immortal abilities bringing him back to the front lines of every battle, war, or fight for humanity or the moral good, but is now completely outclassed by the new kid. When the masculine traits that defined him were no longer needed, he needed to come to terms with leaving it all behind. Let's move on to Rexplode, who is one of my favorite characters in the series. He starts off as your average cocky superhero which embodied many masculine traits seen as toxic, constantly propping himself up as the dominant of all of his superhero teams, especially around those of the other gender. Rex's interpersonal journey to finding a more healthy masculine identity is flawed, but what's so important about it is he realizes how flawed it is, which is why he's able to find a happier life.
I don't know why I had to get my brains blown out to see that.
Rex's growth and maturity resembles a lot of a younger male disconnecting from the manospheric media they would often consume. It personally reminds me a lot of when I finally started criticizing the iDubbbz or Filthy Frank type YouTube media I consumed a lot in high school. I'm giving all of these examples to show that masculine identity is deeply ingrained in the narrative and rhetoric of Invincible. It is not a reaction to a new social issue, but rather more of a reflection on the portrayal of gendered identity within superheroes. Mark is of course our biggest example of representing a part of the masculine identity that is seen negatively, that being emasculation. Emasculation can't be clearly defined, but it consists of situations that can create doubt or negative sentiments in one's masculine abilities. Mark is one of the few heroes I've seen not struggle with communication, as he is always able to convey his feelings with his family and partner in a way that opposes the traditional masculine act of harboring emotions. This isn't the only thing that causes Mark to be seen as less masculine, but also his physical prowess. Mark loses all the time. He gets embarrassed by battle beasts, dog-walked by his own dad, and is constantly put on the floor by others to prove their physical dominance. Mark completely lacks the dominant physical attributes and shallow emotional complexion that traditional displays of masculinity embody, such as with his father. Mark is constantly rejecting any similarities between him and his father, literally telling the audience he will not be the man in the same way his father was, even though it's obvious that it still lies within him. Mark isn't a good superhero. He's a 19-year-old still finding out who he is while trying to figure out how to protect the planet. What Mark embodies in his masculine identity is why he's mentally survived for so long. However, Mark would soon face the biggest challenge to not only Earth and himself, but to who he is as well.
The only thing I want to do right now is hit something as hard as I can.
Good.
I'm like, hey, what's up? Since your pretty eyes, soon as you came in the door, I just wanna chill by the side of my store. Married to the money, introduced her to my store. Showed her how to whip it, now she invincible. She my track queen, let her in the bingo. Baby, counting up, watch how far the fans go. We just saw the go, talking about your Lambos. And love with the money, I ain't never letting go. And I ain't hard with my baby, baby. I just love the money, get the love with my baby, yeah. And I get robbed with my baby, baby. I be in the kitchen getting balls with my baby, yeah. And I get robbed with my baby. I just love the money, get robbed with my baby, yeah. And I get robbed with my baby. I be in the kitchen cooking pies. I'm like, hey, what's up, hello?
Conquest, a man made for pure dominance, obtaining his name through doing just that. Conquest is a one-man army sent by the Viltrum Empire to handle business when no one else is quite able to. Conquest embodies peak male dominance, sporting an incredibly muscular build with a large facial scar and prosthetic hand to solidify his aggressive nature. Mark finds out how this sets the two apart very quickly. Conquest enjoys stripping Mark of any masculinity he has as he destroys Mark's body and family. Conquest attacks the parts of Mark that are held dear within the masculine ideologies. He humiliates his abilities publicly and rips apart his family. Conquest tells Mark multiple times how much he enjoys doing this, and that how it's the first time in a while Conquest, and symbolically his masculinity, have been truly challenged. Though Conquest has lived his life as the constant victor, his masculine identity started to weigh on him, saying it himself that his identity has created an incredible void in his life that has left him eternally lonely and depressed. His masculine identity has taught him to repress his emotions so much, he only reveals them to those he's soon gonna kill, making sure no one truly knows that he's a man with emotion. Conquest has nothing left except for the identity he's made for him. He has gotten so good at being the man he was told to be that it destroyed any part of his personal identity left inside of him. This wasn't in the comic. Why did Kirkman add this? Because it's the reason that Mark is better. Kirkman wanted to make sure Conquest was remembered more than just a vessel of the looming Viltrumite threat. Mark is better than Conquest because he is more than just what people have told him to be or not to be, but a person who has made their choices and lived their life the way they see it best. Mark doesn't rely on masculine identity to survive. I mean, he literally wins because his girlfriend helps him defeat the walking male loneliness sign.
順転と反転、それぞれの無限を衝突させることで生成される仮想の質量を押し出す。挙式、紫。
I feel like the message couldn't be much clearer here. As much as I love the visuals from this fight, the story being told through it is what makes this episode truly amazing. Kirkman wants you to hate Conquest. He wants you to hate what he stands for and what he does. Conquest shows how truly harmful toxic masculine behaviors can be, and how much easier it is to see when the harmful behavior is on such an extraordinary scale. Invincible is an amazing display of not just a healthier masculine identity, but of showing struggles of trying to maintain current masculine identities. Mark faces against someone who stands for everything that has plagued him through his identity and his father. Other male characters face struggles within their masculine identity that lead them to find healthier identities for themselves. Making this bar higher for everyone is how change is made, so pushing that bar in a niche of popular culture is a good start. Though one show may not change the world, hopefully it'll help some in a community already full of toxic masculinity. If I had to give one main takeaway from this video, it's to be like Rex. Don't argue about your past. Just reflect and be better. It's better for you.